Here we go. Welcome again, Elite Selfers. That guy with you here today with another awesome guest. I think this is actually my first interview with a fellow EMT, EMF graduate. So that's awesome to have. So I know me and Graham met in a what are they called? Breakout rooms.
Yeah,
One of
yeah,
the training sessions on that day, and I was like, man, I wouldn't mind having one of these guys in the podcast. So I'm excited to learn more about how he stumbled upon EMF, EMT, Pierce Sage, because most people have some sort of a background in self development. So I know we were kind of talking about it a little before, but yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Graham, and also like how'd you end up doing EMT or finding out about that, man?
yeah. Thanks, Stephen, and yeah, thanks for asking us on to your podcast.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
It's fantastic. So, how did I end up on EMT? Well, up until about 6 months ago, I'd never even heard of Peter Sage. I know he's pretty famous, but he'd just not come across my radar. I've been into like meditation, personal development since about 1993. I've done a lot of groups and kind of workshops, retreats, listened to a lot of teachers. So it's been an important part of my path for many, many years. And also therapy. I've trained as a therapist probably about 20 years ago. And basically, I've been working in the UK National Health Service as a psychological therapist for the last 14 years, doing cognitive behavioural therapy, EMDR, and mindfulness cognitive therapy. That was getting a little bit stressful. So being though I was of a certain age, I could take an early retirement from there, which gave me an opportunity to really reinvent myself. I've been interested in hypnotherapy for many years, so I decided to retrain as a hypnotherapist, solution-focused hypnotherapy. But at the same time, I'm not that great just hanging around. My mind tends to kind of get up to mischief. So I needed to do some more kind of work, and I said to my partner that I could do with doing a bit more personal development whilst I'm retraining, just to fill the time, and then be careful for what you wish for. 2 weeks later, I saw on my Facebook feed, I saw an advert and a webinar from Peter Sage, and I was just blown away by him. So very quickly, I just joined the program, Elite Mentorship Forum, and training as a Elite Mentorship trainer. So that's my quick story.
What you said you're trying to do or learn hypnotherapy? Have you ever been hypnotized? You've gone through?
Yeah. I stopped smoking with hypnotherapy 30 something years ago, so I know it works.
Wow. And was it just one session, or how's that?
Well, actually, I had two sessions. I had one session, and with this guy, it just didn't kind of work. He was saying, when you leave here, you won't want to smoke again. And I was thinking, well, actually, as soon as I leave here, I'm gonna go and buy some. I'm gonna go buy some cigarettes, and that's what I did. But about a few months later, I went to see a different guy, and he said to me, all I need from you is the kind of intention, really. And so I read a book called The Easy Way to Give Up Smoking by Alan Carr. I think he's an Australian guy. So I read that, and then I went to see this other hypnotherapist, and just one session, and I walked out of there like I'd never, ever smoked. It was absolutely amazing. Wow. So, yeah. And So yeah, I know it works. Brilliant.
Wow, I do. It reminds me of how a lot of people, especially that we're both coaches, through EMT, and you've been coaching way longer than I have, a lot more experience as well. But I know a lot of people will get discouraged or something, hearing like, well, this EMT thing's not for me, or just the reason I'm saying that is because you went to that first hypnotherapist and it didn't work. It's like, well, maybe that guy just didn't work out for you, but you
Yeah.
kept looking to find that thing that worked for you. So, man, that's wild. That's awesome. I've seen it. It's hard to believe, but yeah, I think you're probably the first person to tell me that hypnotherapy actually worked for him, but I haven't asked that many people.
Yeah. And yesterday, I did a stop smoking session as part of my training with a guy 5 weeks ago. And he was a proper client, if you like, wanted to stop smoking, and I was doing a session to kind of practice. And at the end of the session, I was saying, "Okay, then, Fred, see you later. Enjoy your life as a non-smoker." And
Right.
and I was thinking about him over the weeks. I was thinking, I wonder how he's doing. Has he actually stopped smoking? And he texted me yesterday saying, thanks very much. I've not had a cigarette for 5 weeks. And so it was just, absolutely fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
so you can get my sugar addiction. Just love me some. Works the same way, right?
Possibly. We've not done the module on that.
Yeah. Well, there's the health straight talk and other things like that. But I just that'd be kind of interesting to see if you get my sugar addiction out of the way. I'm not that bad. When I was a kid, it was horrible. But yeah. So what? You mentioned, so you've been a hypnotherapist, or you're working to be a hypnotherapist. You did CBT, as cognitive behavioral therapy. You're a therapist, and then you ran across the EMT. And we were just talking earlier that you graduated. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and you're EMT trainer now. For those who don't know, Elite Mentorship Forum was EMF, and then Elite Mentorship Trainer. So you're in the presence of two awesome trainers. Experience over here. So now that you've ended it, what would you say is your biggest wow? I was looking for some more personal development, and I found it. What do you think was your biggest takeaway from it?
Yeah. For me, it was actually from the first module, Ruling Reality, where we look at actually how does the world work, the nature of consciousness, and that really just blew me away. So it was I definitely had a paradigm shift there. I'd known about a lot of those ideas previously, but I think they were at an intellectual level, and it was kind of, that's really interesting. Yeah, that's interesting, right. But not really taking it into the heart. And I think it was just the way Peter Sage teaches, and some of the resources that he'd shared with us and signposted us to, that there was a definite shift for me into having a deeper understanding of the nature of reality. And for me, that was great, and it really fitted with my kind of spiritual practices, those kind of thing. It enhanced my spiritual practices, So that was a big shift for me. Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. So you've seen The Matrix. He talks about The Matrix a lot.
Yeah. And the 13th Floor. That was a great film.
Yeah. That was great. So you, so before, if somebody said you're in a simulation, you would be like, yeah, that's kind of interesting. But what about now? Do you feel like you're like, I'm in a simulation, or you see it as, we're in a type of simulation where the body's just a tool and we're 99.9999% energy.
Yeah, well, I do think the simulation hypothesis for me, yeah, I do. I kind of believe that, and I have kind of experience of that. But I suppose when you say a simulation, and some people say a hologram, and that I prefer consciousness. That everything is consciousness.
Gotcha.
And that fits. That fits a lot with the kind of spiritual teachers that I'm interested in. And that's what I say when I come to those teachings, the spiritual teachings with the simulation hypothesis, and I think wow, it kind of really dovetails nicely. So yeah, that's so. Yeah.
Definitely when I first heard of the idea, and I never heard of it before, and just like you said, like of course I saw The Matrix. That was like 1999, it was a long time ago. It seemed like a cool idea. Oh yeah, we're all just batteries or whatever, and the machines have taken over. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Of course, they put Hollywood in there, and it's a lot of fighting, learn kung fu in 5 seconds. But when I first thought of the concept, when I really sat down and watched it, I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson was talking to somebody, and then Elon Musk was saying the probability of us being in a simulation. When I first heard it, this was like 7-8 years ago, that I really was like, holy crap, we could be in that simulation. It was somewhat stressing to me because I didn't understand it, because I saw it as, well, then what's the point of living? This isn't real, right? It's all fake. And then after I don't know, after 6 months of just, I don't know, just thinking about it and reading up on it, looking more at it, I was like, wait, no, it's really the other way around, because now all the things that I fear, now all the things that I'm like worried about failing on, all the things I put so much importance on, isn't that important. Like I can actually take some risks and not be as attached to these things that are not that big of a deal. So that was definitely my biggest experience with that idea of us being in a simulation.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you something about that module. Oh yeah, right. So we talked a little bit earlier, but before this, and you mentioned like the morning routine, because I can kind of see why you see it as being important, or the ruling reality of the first module is important. Because to me, in my eyes, like you were saying, like meditation and starting your day, it's kind of like the more everybody wakes up, and they immediately see material things. They see their bed and their cat and then their light, and they immediately get sucked into this physical reality, this physical world, rather than it being a world of influence, right? That they start seeing. But once you tell me your opinion or your version of this, but once you go in a state of meditation, you create that reality of the physical world, if that makes sense. You start shifting the world in your mind and the way you want to see it, and then you start your day. Tell me why you find meditation and that being your morning routine so important.
Yeah. I mean, meditation for me has been a massive help since I kind of discovered it in 1993. My life was a little bit, and my life was a little bit different then. I was kind of probably drinking too much, smoking too much weed, a bit too depressed, a bit too anxious, just on the wrong path, really, a little bit lost. And I came across Buddhist teachings. I was round at a friend's house, and she was listening to in them days, it was the old reel-to-reel cassette tapes, probably before your time. And it was a Buddhist teaching on the nature of the mind, and it absolutely just blew me away. I'd never heard anything so profound in all my life. And that got me interested, and I started to go to that particular group, started listening to the Buddhist teachings and meditating, and then just over time, I was kind of curious about what other people were saying about the spiritual life, because I've not been brought up with any of those ideas. You know, my parents were great people, really decent people, but you know, that side of life just wasn't on the agenda. You know, they were busy making a living and looking after the kids. You know, so so that was a real kind of eye opener, that this side of life, you know, existed. And so I went round to a lot of organisations and groups and those kinds of things. And it was all confusing at the time, because everybody was saying they had the right answer. You know, it was like, don't listen to them. Don't listen now. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So for me, you know, maybe being a little bit left brain, I thought I need to get to the bottom of this and find out who's right. And eventually I realised that actually, you know, there's many ways up the mountain, you know, and there's a kind of universal truth underlying those things. That's what I came to understand for me. So and the meditation was an important part of that, because no matter who you went to speak to or what personal development books you read, most of them would say that, you know, to really develop, you have to do some kind of meditation, whether they called it meditation or whether they called it something else. The same principle of just sitting down, or, you know, taking some time to come back to yourself and rediscover that part of us that gets lost in the noise of our personality and our conceptual mind, you know. So taking time, you know, for me to sit down and become aware of myself inside, you know. So and over the years, that served as a bit of an anchor when the waters of life were getting a bit choppy. I would have this practice to return to, and over the years, my understanding of that and my practice of it is kind of shifted and changed, you know. But it's always been an important part of what I do every day, really, and to start the day in that way really sets me up for the day.
With the amount of years of experience meditating, what I mean, you kind of briefly went over it, but you know, I know in our program they talk about the passive or the active and passive meditation. Do you alternate those? Do you sometimes do passive? And I guess go ahead and explain to people who don't know what we're talking about, like what you see as active meditation and passive.
Yeah, and that I think that was one of the big things I got out of EMF as well. So for most of my life, or most of my meditating life, I've done what we'd call passive meditation. So passive meditation would be things like meditating on your breath, so mindfulness of breathing, or body sensations, or I did a mantra practice for many years. And so those kind of practices, you know, they do help build up the concentration. They help to stabilize and calm the mind. And the very, very useful practices. The active meditation practices are more where you're working with visualizations, particularly around in the EMF, around focusing on your goals and your intentions. You know, very important, because, you know, that's one of the things out of the Ruling Reality module, and it permeates the whole of EMF. You know, conscious intent influences reality. So how we think has an impact in the quantum field and changes things in the material world, you know, because everything is connected. So the passive meditation is sitting down, learning and practicing to settle the mind and calm the mind, bring it back from distractions, or allow distractions to be there without getting caught up in them. And then taking the time to do some active meditation where you're using that skill, that ability that you've built up to direct your attention to what you want, really. So whatever that might be. Yeah.
So, what would you suggest for anybody listening out there who's like, yeah, I've heard of this meditation thing. I guess, like, do you suggest, like you said, like the box breathing method, kind of, just focusing on your breath concept, and just, hey, just start there. Just wake up and watch your breath go inside your body, watch it come out, do it for 5 minutes. Let's just start there. Or what do you suggest? Don't start with active, like start with passive first.
Definitely. I think the passive meditation, the passive meditation builds up your capacity to direct the focus of your mind. So if you don't do some of that, and if you don't practice that, it's very easy for the mind to be scattered. I mean, it's the nature of the mind to be thinking and pulling us all over the place. That's just how the mind is. So to use some of the passive meditation techniques can help with the active meditation. I think the main thing, there's lots of apps you can get for your phone. They're pretty good, but you don't need any. You don't need any apps. You can sit down or even lie down. The problem with lying down is it's quite easy to fall asleep. So if you just sit down, and you don't have to sit in a kind of lotus posture or anything like that. You can sit in a chair, and you can just bring your attention to the feet on the ground, the body sat in the chair. If you want to, you can close your eyes, and then you can just bring your attention to the breathing. That could be at the nostrils, could be your chest rising, it could be the belly. And just rest here, choose one of those areas. If it's the belly, you could just focus on the belly. You could put your hand there for a few moments just to feel the rise and fall of the belly. Yeah. And then just notice the mind will wander away, so your attention will drift off. And that's not a mistake. It doesn't mean that you can't meditate. It's just a part of the practice. So the mind goes away, you notice that, and then you just bring it back to the belly or the nostrils, and then it goes off again. You notice that, and you bring it back again without giving yourself a hard time. I mean, it's part of the practice. It's a bit like going to the gym. You put the weights on the bar and you move the bar, and that builds a muscle. So whenever the attention wanders and you notice that, and then you bring it back, you're building that muscle in the mind, that concentration muscle to notice, and you're learning to relate to your mind in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a very simple practice, but it's extremely powerful. So that's what I would suggest. Just sit down and just focus on a part of your breathing where you notice the physical sensations clearest, and just rest your attention there, and don't expect anything to happen. Yeah. Go in without any expectations, and the mind will be saying, well, Graham, this is a bit of a waste of time, isn't it? All you're doing is just kind of thinking about what you're going to be doing the rest of the day, and your mind's wandering off. But just notice that thought as well. Oh, that's interesting. My mind's saying this is a waste of time. Just notice that and come back to the breath. Yeah. Goes off again. Just bring it back. Simple practice. And if you did that for 5 minutes every day, it would have a kind of an impact on your life.
Yeah, I like how you said that. As far as a lot of people think like meditation is stopping your thoughts, and it's like it's not possible. Especially since we are connected to the universe, we're connected to energy, we're connected to so much. There is no stopping it. It's connecting with it, if anything. But I love how you mentioned. Is one thing that I learned that was huge on my meditation journey, and I haven't been meditating that long, maybe nothing near as experiences you have in it, but maybe 5 or 6 years. But one thing I would get angry or frustrated when I'm doing my breathing exercises, and then out of nowhere I'm like crap, like for the last 3 minutes, I've been thinking about work. I totally forgot. I'm like, get out of here, work. Stop it. And then I'm like, okay, back to this. And what I started to notice was I would treat the issues or any problems I had throughout my day the same way. So if something, I'm doing something and something came, I'd be like, quit, get out of here. And the more, that's when I forget where I heard it from, but they said, say thank you to that thought. Say, oh yeah, you got to go to work soon. Oh, thank you, thought. I appreciate it. We'll talk about that later. And you just let it float away, and then you go back to it. And I started to recognize that when I would have issues that would come my way, they would be like, "Oh, what's the problem? Oh, okay, resolve that." But it was quite interesting on how that developed for me.
That's a great great to make that connection. It's and that's what it's about, being able to sit down and just allow whatever's coming up, whether it's thoughts, feelings, sensations in the body, urges or impulses to do things, just to sit and notice it all as the pure awareness, the witness of that. So we're getting back to our natural, who we really are, all that stuff that's happening in our awareness. Sometimes we get pulled into that and we think we are that, but actually there's a bigger picture,
And yeah, and even like you said, connecting with yourself and learning about yourself. And through in EMF, you have some practices on you finding out where certain emotions are. Like we talk about treating the shoulder and certain that was mastering emotions. And there's a couple other things, like where's a certain energy when you're a warrior or when you're whatever it is.
Yeah.
And if your mind is all over the place, you don't have that practice down. You're just going to be like, it's in my stomach. It's like, wait, no, that was because I had a burrito earlier. You lack that connection with yourself. That was actually a struggle for me when I was doing. How was that for you? As far as like when we were trying to find the location of certain energy, as far as certain emotions attached to things, was that easier for you with your experience with meditation?
Like with the archetypes, finding the warrior and things. I'm sure meditation practice helps with that, and I think that's why the program, you've got that concentration module very early in the program, haven't you? I think Peter Sage kind of recognizes that having that ability to direct your attention and not get just pulled into the story. We're always going to get pulled into the story in the mind, but it's being aware of that and being able to kind of then choose to a certain degree, and then we'll get pulled into it again. So those concentration skills can be useful. The archetypes, then getting in touch with the warrior energy, I found it useful. The way I think Peter mentioned it, actually stepping into that character. So I would embodying it. So I would actually change positions in the room and adopt the kind of persona of that energy by shifting positions and maybe taking up that stance. How would a warrior stand?
Yeah.
How would the magician stand? How would the lover stand? So I think embodying them helped me. Yeah.
Man, yeah. And even speaking on that module, that was a huge thing for me, because all of us. So if you're listening, you're like, what are you talking about? So in EMF, we go through one module that helps you. We all have these characters in it. There's 4 different characters. Help me with this. I might. Was it the warrior, the magician, the lover, and the sovereign?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we all have these in us, but it's usually. I'm going to paraphrase a lot of this, and some of it being my opinion and experience, but we let our surroundings dictate when these things come up. So maybe some people never pull out the warrior. Warrior is a person who's just direct, knows what they want. They're just going to make it happen. Doesn't matter. And some people only pull out their warrior when they're put in a corner, right? and then a magician's a creative person. But if you're on the immature side of being creative, then you have a bunch of ideas and you never actually do them. Um,
Mm.
so basically, when he says stepping into it, is we create that persona, like you said. Like, what does your confident, doesn't care what's in your way, gonna make it happen type of person do? They stand up straight, shoulders
Yeah.
back. How they breathing? They breathe. They're breathing very hard, direct, like heavy, like whatever. Maybe your fists are clenched because you're ready to go, and then you step out of that frame and you just kind of be in no man's land, and you're like, well, no, I need to be in my creative mind. And you step forward into that. Yeah, so I love that exercise in there, and that's something just like meditation that I know I need to practice more as well. But practice to when I walk into a situation, I might just be nervous or want to be a clown or a magician when I need to
Yeah.
be a warrior. So, because I've done
Yeah.
that before, and I've like, okay, I'm going to be the warrior in here. I'm going to this networking event. I'm going to meet all these people, and I'm going to be confident. I'm going to be fun, but I'm going to be confident. And
Yeah.
I stay in it for like a good 2 minutes, and then I forget, and I'm back to my old self. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. We're
So
human.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the meditation, which I mean, I think out of anything, which if nobody ever did any kind of self development or anything, they said, "What's the one thing?" I was like, "Just meditate, just meditate," because it's the same thing with me shifting into my warrior. If I go into an event and I start getting distracted, what's the difference between me working on my breathing and getting distracted? It's the same thing. If I want to stay in that state, if I have that practice, it's yeah, it's very powerful. So one
Yeah.
thing I wanted to ask you before we run out of time is you're doing EMF, you're an EMT trainer now. Like who are your people? Who are you trying to reach out to? Who's somebody that should be like, hey, I need to get a hold of Graham. How do I get a hold of this guy?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to get a hold of me, you could go on LinkedIn, Graham Williams. I'm on Facebook, and it's Graham Infinite Potential. And yeah, who are my people? Well, I mean, for me, initially with the EMF and leading groups, people through EMF, because I'm learning, I'm starting out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then, in some respects, I like the idea that the people who come on the program will teach me who my people are.
Yeah.
I could have a conceptual idea that actually my people are such and such. I could go for burnt out health and social care workers.
Right.
Yeah. But actually I'm open to work with anybody who's interested in this work, who really is, feels compelled and feels motivated to actually, take some time. It's a 6-month journey, and it goes into some depth. So people who really want to take that time to actually go deep and make some, changes and learn some new skills of how to relate to themselves, other people, the world, reality, their higher power or not higher power. So I'm kind of open to. It's more for me. It's more people who are interested and who kind of want to show up and do the work. Yeah.
Awesome.
And what about you? Do you have a kind of a niche or people's?
Yeah. I focus on managers, basically leaders or managers, which could be also business owners, people who lead teams. Because through my experience, I've been a manager, or was, for about 18 years. A leader for 10 of that time. But definitely people who lead teams, trying to develop their teams, whether you're trying to increase profit, you're trying to create a type of culture. And, the way I tell people this is, hey, I don't teach specific tactics on increasing profit. I teach you how to connect with yourself to find to get in that state of flow, right? Because a lot of us are in the buy me mode, get the through me. So once you, as an individual leader, know what you want and know how to connect with the universe and know how to actually use that energy and it not be something that I'm tired, I can't do this. Well, you're just clearly not connected to your purpose and what you're trying to do. So I focus, man. I'm in the same boat. Anybody who comes across and says, "Man, I'm just lost. I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what my focus is. I'm doing this." I'm like, "Yeah, well, this would still benefit you, right?" But yeah, mainly managers or business owners. I usually talk with, try to connect with as much as possible. But once again, still, just like yourself, I'm open to meet and talk with anybody. Just it only makes me better as well. Even talking with you, you reminded me of some things in module 1, and yeah, I need to step up my game on my my meditation practice. So thank you for that. Any last words? Anything? Let me ask you this. I can put you on the spot, but if there was one thing that you would want to tell somebody, it doesn't have to be EMF or anything, as far as self-development, you're in the elevator and you just tell they're having a hard time and you can only give them about 1 or 2 sentences. What would it be?
What would it be? It would be start a daily meditation practice. Start doing it in the morning, first thing before you do anything. And for me, what really worked, what enabled me to get the practice going on a daily basis, and it's a very low tech solution. I literally got a sheet of paper and I wrote on the paper, this is what I'm going to do in the morning. And I had it's like a daily readings book. So each day that, you'd have a inspirational passage. So the 14th of September, you'd read a short passage of something that's inspiring, and doing that, and then sitting down for 5 minutes and focusing on your breath. That would be my top tip. So the meditation and a little low tech hack to get you doing that is to write your intention down and maybe use a daily readings book. If you didn't want to use a daily readings book, any inspirational book that you've got, read a few sentences of that and then do the 5 minutes practice. And that would be my top tip.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. And as our world has become more and more information overload, information dump, people don't want to believe that something so simple. It's like, oh man, it's got to be complicated to really get my life together and do this, and that, and what app do I need to get? What course? What this is like? It's actually extremely simple. It's like you said, you start with meditation. Something like you said, low tech. I love how you said that. It's low tech. Like you don't need to go buy a bunch of stuff to do this.
No, you don't need anything. Absolutely anything. All you need is the intention. Sit down and don't have any expectations of seeing choirs of angels and hearing trumpets and fountains of kundalini or any of that stuff. It's very gentle, coming back to yourself.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, man, Graham, thank you so much for being on here. I'm excited to get you back on here after, I don't know, whenever you'd like. You want to talk about a different module, or maybe if you have your first board, or I'd love to have you back on, or whenever you start your own podcast.
Well, you'll be a guest, Stephen, if I start one. So,
all right. All right.
Thanks. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Graham. Lead Selfers, thanks so much for tuning in. We're just going to keep rolling them in, keep learning what we can. I think we all learned a lot, including myself, about meditation, EMF, all that. I'm going to try to see if I can get Graham's link below so we can click on that, get a quick access to that, and also what EMF